Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a journey back, way back actually, over 170 years. We're going to crack open a really fascinating and pretty controversial topic, animal magnetism, or as most people knew it, mesmerism. And our main source for this deep dive is this powerful treatise from 1846. It's by Henry Jones, and the title says it all, Animal Magnetism Repudiated as Sorcery, Not a Science. But here's where it gets really interesting. He includes an appendix by William H. Beecher, D.D., no less. And Beecher's count is firsthand, almost like a counterpoint to Jones's, total condemnation. So our mission today, unpack this intense historical debate, look at the powers they claimed mesmerism had, the arguments against it being science, and the darker side too, all through these amazing old documents.
And, this wasn't some small fringe thing back then. Mesmerism, named after Dr. Franz Mesmer, who really pushed it as a science around 1750. It was a huge cultural moment. Our source makes it clear it was discussed, practiced all across what they called Christendom. It was even taught with professorships in European colleges.
Yeah.
It really captured people's attention big time.
Okay, so mesmerism, the name sounds a bit, vague. What did it actually look like? What were the really kind of wild claims? Jones's book, it lays out some pretty striking exhibitions right from the start.
Yeah, so the core thing, the main exhibition, was one person, the magnetizer, putting someone else into what they called an unnatural or magnetic sleep. And how they did it usually was through the magnetizer's sheer force of will, often with downward hand movements or maybe up and down near the person. Could take maybe 20 minutes. And here's a key detail. Typically, only the original magnetizer, maybe another skilled one, could wake the person up.
Right. And the stuff they claimed happened during the sleep. It's just astonishing. Our source talks about people who, while magnetized, could talk, walk, act almost like they were awake, sleepwalking basically, but more interactive. And then there's the phrenology link. Touching specific bumps on their head supposedly made them show extreme emotions, like instant self-esteem or combativeness or whatever the organ was meant to represent. Plus, they could apparently be paralyzed or stiffened just by the magnetizer's will, held in weird postures until released. But the clairvoyance, okay, that's where it really goes off the rails, doesn't it? People supposedly able to see, to read without eyes, even if they were completely blindfolded.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
And getting accurate info about family far away, finding lost things, describing internal diseases, even prescribing cures beyond the skill of the learned physician. The source insists this was backed up by thousands of competent witnesses. And get this, painless surgery, tooth extractions, major operations, supposedly done with zero pain. Zero.
And it wasn't just about being right there either. This idea of remote magnetizing. It's pretty out there. Mesmer himself supposedly magnetized a tree, so anyone walking near it would just, poof, fall into this magnetic sleep.
A tree? Seriously?
That's a story. And more recently, for them, Mr. Sunderland in New York, he claimed he magnetized a ring to put someone to sleep from half a mile off. And even crazier, he supposedly magnetized a business card and a letter in Boston to wake up two young women in Providence, Rhode Island. One hadn't woken up for 10 days, apparently, miles away.
Okay, so were there rules for this, conditions for it to work? The source says consent was usually needed, but not always. People magnetized often were easier subjects. Composure was important. Hostility, even secret hostility, apparently messed it up.
Right. And the magnetizer usually needed to be, stronger mentally and physically than the patient.
And for a bit of drama, that story about the 14-year-old boy in New York, put into magnetic sleep by Professor Rogers, and then he apparently and repeatedly lifted an armchair with 6 large men in it.
6
in front of a whole congregation. Broke the chair, scattered the men, then lifted the broken chair high. I mean, talk about a show.
Well, with claims like that, so incredible, and honestly sometimes hard to believe. It's maybe not surprising that many people try to frame it as a new kind of science, but Henry Jones, our author, he strongly, vehemently rejected that idea. He lays out a pretty forceful case against it being science at all.
Okay, so what was Jones's first major issue with calling mesmerism a science? He really zoned in on the hidden mystery of how it supposedly worked, the moving power. He talks about the theories flying around back then, this magnetic fluid or human sympathy, even electricity.
Right, those were the common explanations floating around.
But here's the thing Jones points out. Even the best magnetizers admitted they had no clue how it actually worked. The mechanism was unknown.
Exactly. And Jones just tears those theories apart. A fluid. That's just matter, he says. Can't have intelligence, human sympathy. Might cause normal sleep, maybe, but not these strange phenomena. Electricity. Again, just mere matter. How could it communicate unnatural intelligence?
So for Jones, a real science needed more than just weird effects. It needed a known, consistent, understandable cause. And mesmerism, in his view, had absolutely none of that.
Which led him to a really key question. Who could actually do this? He points out that, well, illiterate females and young children often succeeded. And he argues, look, that goes against the very idea of science. Science has to be learned, understood, before you can practice it. But here you had people doing it with zero scientific training or knowledge.
Exactly. And think about those physical feats, like that kid lifting the chair with 6 men. Jones estimates that's at least 600 pounds. He says that's maybe 4 times the boy's normal strength. How does science explain that?
It doesn't, according to Jones. No scientific principle, he argued, could just quadruple a sleeping boy's strength like that. And then, yeah, the clairvoyance again, seeing while blindfolded, knowing things happening miles away, diagnosing illness better than doctors. Jones basically says that's just not something you learn like you learn science. He calls it a telegraph beating ability, contrasting it sharply with the scientific method, observation, reason, learning. This stuff defied all that.
So Jones's final scientific critique was pretty blunt then. He said the magnetizers just offered bare assertion, no real proof. They tried to compare it to, like, blood circulation or steam power. New science is just not fully understood yet.
Yeah, that was their defense. Give it time.
But Jones completely rejected that comparison. He said there was nothing in blood or planets or steam that was so manifestly contrary to common sense and to the well-understood laws of nature as animal magnetism. For him, it just fundamentally couldn't be science, period.
And he even threw in a quick religious point to back that up. Citing the Bible, 1 Timothy, warning against science falsely so-called, he felt mesmerism was exactly that.
Okay, but what about the argument that, okay, maybe it's weird, maybe it's not science, but it works, that it has practical utility, like relieving pain, maybe even healing? What did Jones say to that?
Yeah, that was a big argument for it. And the source, even Jones's source, admits there were thousands of credible eyewitnesses seeing mesmerism relieve pain, heal diseases, allow painless surgery and tooth pulling. But Jones had counters, of course. First, he said it was totally inconsistent, no sure or regular dependence on this power. Lots of failures.
Okay, so unreliable.
Right. But even if it did work reliably, Jones had a deeper moral objection. He argued it was counteracting the laws of nature. It was hindering the just and necessary penalty for violating those laws, essentially, removing suffering that might be needed for spiritual growth or final everlasting salvation.
Wow, so stopping pain could be spiritually bad.
In his view, yes. He compared it to ancient sorcery, which also sometimes provided apparent or temporary good. He brings up Simon the sorcerer, the girl in Acts, who told fortunes examples of bad sources doing seemingly good things.
Okay, what about other uses, like helping find lost money or property?
Jones saw that as exactly the same thing. He just calls it conjurology, basically, sorcery or magic for practical gain.
And he makes a really crucial point there, doesn't he? If it can be used for good, well.
It can definitely be used for bad, and probably much the most frequently, he suspected. Especially since, as he put it, it's likely 100-fold more in the hands of selfish than of truly benevolent men in what he saw as a wicked world.
That raises the question, though, what about all the respected people involved? The source mentions worthy men, approved of it, even practiced it. How did Jones deal with that?
He wasn't swayed. He basically warned that even worthy and discerning men could be tricked, especially in the latter times, by seducing spirits. He points to Bible figures. Job, Peter, even King David, people of high standing who were still deceived or tempted by Satan. So reputation wasn't proof against deception for Jones.
Okay, so this leads us straight to Jones's final, pretty stark conclusion. No mincing words. Mesmerism isn't just bad science, it's sorcery, done by the dark powers of Satan himself. But what's so fascinating, almost jarring, is that Jones himself includes Beecher's account in the appendix. And Beecher offers this powerful first-hand story that seems to, well, it presents the phenomena very differently. It's like Exhibit A for the very thing Jones is condemning.
Exactly. Beecher is presented as this individual, competent, impartial, and experienced witness, a doctor of divinity. And he starts by saying he was skeptical. But then he describes accidentally putting this 10-year-old boy, Henry, into magnetic sleep. The boy had cataleptic fits, wasn't speaking. Beecher just suggested someone try mesmerism, made a few hand passes himself, and boom, the boy seemed to fall asleep.
And the experiments Beecher describes doing with Henry then, they are just incredible. Right out of the claims Jones dismisses. Henry hadn't spoken for days, right? But in this sleep, he suddenly names Beecher's wife and his mother's maiden name.
Things Beecher was certain the boy couldn't have known naturally.
And the sensory transfer. Beecher puts vinegar in his own mouth. Henry reacts with disgust. Beecher puts sugar in his mouth. Henry smiles and says it's muscovado, like that specific dark brown sugar, light brown he calls it.
Wow.
Beecher just holds hartshorn, smelling salts. Henry smells it. Beecher feels a burn from it on his nose. Henry feels it on his nose. Then, asked about his illness, Henry diagnoses himself, says he hurt his brain falling from the great beam in the barn, and calls the local doctors ignorant. And the phrenology tests. Beecher touches spots on Henry's head corresponding to phrenological organs, and Henry, who knew nothing about phrenology, starts praying or singing, or even raises his fist like he's going to hit Beecher, depending on the spot touched. Beecher even admits he touched the wrong spot initially.
So the reaction was tied to the spot, not Beecher's intention necessarily.
Exactly. And then remote viewing. Henry describes Beecher's study in Batavia, New York, a place Henry had never seen. Gets the number of bookcases right, the messy papers on a 5-foot table, and the outcome. Henry says the mesmerism helps his pain and will cure him, and Beecher says through daily magnetizing, he recovered.
So Beecher's conclusion is very different from Jones's, isn't it? It's much more nuanced. He basically says, what I see and know I believe. He admits there's fraud out there, sure, but he ultimately thinks mesmerism, used as a remedial agent, could still accomplish much good. He sees investigating it as the way to sort out the truth from the deception, not something to just avoid entirely.
Right. And it's this stark contrast. Beecher's empirical observations, even though he frames them religiously too, leading to a positive view, versus Jones, who sees these exact same kinds of phenomena, clairvoyance, weird strength, knowing things you shouldn't, as definitive proof of satanic influence.
Yeah, Jones lines them up with biblical accounts of sorcery. Janus and Jambres resisting Moses, the witch of Endor summoning Samuel, Simon the sorcerer. He argues these are the same kinds of power, just with a new name.
And Jones didn't just see this informal mesmerism, did he? He saw these modern parallels of sorcery popping up elsewhere, too.
That's right. He gives other examples to show this power wasn't limited to Mesmer's techniques. There was a Mr. B in Connecticut, stiffening people just by praying and using hand movements, but without knowing anything about mesmerism, mimicking the effects unknowingly. He described these wild religious meetings in Vermont, jumping, yelling, barking. Even Jones saw that as a work of sorcery, mixed in with genuine religious feeling. In cases of just spontaneous supernatural intelligence, a Miss Kidder revealing secrets, a woman predicting deaths, a man having a vision of his son dying far away. Jones lumps astrologers and fortune tellers in too, all part of the same pattern for him. And then there's that really striking case of the Methodist class leader in New York. After an Adventist meeting, he suddenly sees light, a vapor, feels his limbs go numb. Jones explicitly notes the similarity to mesmeric sensations. And this guy feels compelled to travel miles shouting, "My Lord is a-coming," over and over until it just stops. Jones highlights this because it looks so much like mesmerism, but with no human magnetizer involved. For Jones, that pointed strongly to a supernatural and likely demonic source.
So Jones wasn't just worried about it being fake science. He was deeply concerned about the potential for real harm, the enormous evils mesmerism could unleash. Partly moral corruption, right? Tricking people away from God with these satanic and lying wonders.
Yes, undermining genuine faith, hindering salvation in his view.
But he also got very specific about the potential for, well, undetectable crime. This is where it gets really chilling. He quotes this pamphlet from 1845, Confessions of a Practical Magnetizer. Anonymous, but supposedly real. And the abuses described are shocking. This supposed magnetizer claims he changed a woman's mind against her will. Confesses he won his own wife's love by magnetizing her for an illness when she was just 17.
Wow. Talk about consent issues.
Seriously. Then he willed another young woman's affections towards himself, forcing her to cling to him even though she initially resisted. And the most complicated story, he helps a guy win back his fiancée by magnetizing the young woman without her knowing.
Secretly influencing her feelings.
Yeah. But then, the magnetizer and this now married woman develop an unlawful attachment. And get this. They needed his own wife and her husband to secretly magnetize them separately to fix it, to win affections back. All kept totally secret.
That is incredibly messed up.
And there's more straightforward crime, too. That ingenious robbery at Howard's Hotel. Jacques Perrot supposedly magnetized the lawyer, put him to sleep, and stole $950. Was later caught for other crimes using mesmerism. And seducing patients was mentioned, too.
So Jones's point is stark. Mesmerism provides surprising facilities for accomplishing evil. Why? Because the crimes could be undetectable. How do you prove someone was manipulated mentally? or left in a magnetic sleep to die.
Right.
There's no physical evidence like a normal crime.
Right, no smoking gun.
He compares it to beliefs about New Zealand priests, the Iriki, killing people just by incantation, no physical contact, or the biblical story of the woman bound by Satan for years, supernatural harm that leaves no obvious trace. That hidden, untraceable nature was, for Jones, one of the most dangerous things about it.
So where does that leave us? I mean, what a whirlwind. We've seen mesmerism painted as this miracle cure, a path to seeing beyond the senses, and at the exact same time, as this incredibly dangerous gateway to sorcery, manipulation, and crime you can't even detect. Jones and Beecher, living in the same era, both religious men, offer such radically different ways to understand the exact same reported events. Beecher sees good potential, Jones sees Satan.
It really throws a fascinating question at us, even today, doesn't it? When we encounter things that seem to defy our current scientific understanding, whatever they might be, how do we choose? Do we lean towards skepticism, towards open-minded investigation, like Beecher maybe tried, or towards moral caution, like Jones urged? It's striking how the same evidence led these two intelligent men down such opposite paths.
Yeah, that tension. Believing what you personally see and experience, like Beecher with Henry, versus interpreting those same experiences through a strong pre-existing framework, whether it's moral or religious, like Jones did. That's such a fundamental human dilemma, isn't it? How observation, belief, and interpretation all tangle together. It still feels relevant.
Absolutely. And the whole discussion really forces you to think about responsibility, the responsibility that comes with any kind of influence one person can have over another, especially when you don't fully understand how it works, and the potential for misuse, even unintentional misuse, is there.
So as you listening think about all this, here's maybe a final thought to chew on. We live in an age of incredibly rapid change, technology, science pushing boundaries all the time, information flying everywhere. Are we today any less susceptible to lying wonders, to powerful influences, maybe technological, maybe social, maybe something else entirely, that blur those lines, the lines between genuine benefit, things we just don't understand yet, and, well, potentially dangerous manipulation? Something to think about.